The book of Esther identifies its chief antagonist as Haman Ha'agagi, Haman the Agagite. The rabbis understand this to be a reference to Haman's Amalekite pedigree. Agag was the Amalekite king with whom King Saul waged war in the book of Samuel. This rabbinic understanding frames Haman's plot to eliminate the Jewish people and the Jews' triumphant retaliation as volleys back and forth in an ongoing struggle between Israel and Amalek that plays out throughout Hebrew scripture, beginning with the ambush by the Amalekites of the Israelites in the wilderness on the way out of Egypt. The struggle against Amalek is a pervasive motif on Purim in particular, which we celebrate this coming Wednesday evening and Thursday. Besides this reference in the book of Esther, it's the subject of this Shabbat's special Torah portion, Parashat Zachor, which gives this pre-Purim Sabbath its name, Shabbat Zachor. The Torah's depiction of Amalek's ambush begins, "They chanced upon you on the road," utilizing a Hebrew pun on the word karacha, which means chanced upon you. The rabbis of the Midrash provided an alternate translation from the Hebrew word kar, which means cold, who cooled you off on the road. The rabbis draw the metaphor of a tub filled with water so hot that people would not bathe in it. But then a single reckless individual jumped in. Despite being scalded by the hot water, that person succeeded in cooling the bath. After the exodus from Egypt, the rabbis explain, the other nations would not dare challenge the Israelites because they saw how God protected them. Only Amalek attacked. They were defeated, but cooled the bath, so that the Israelites seemed less untouchable. The aura was off, and the other nations would later attack them as well. Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson, the late Lubavitcher Rebbe, explains that Amalek represents that deep spirit of cynicism that allows one to fully grasp the reality of a situation and then casually disregard it. The ability to say, "So what?" in the face of objective reality. Amalek is not about claiming that the truth is in doubt. Amalek is about claiming that the truth simply does not matter. The Russian-American journalist Masha Gessen wrote of how Vladimir Putin lies deliberately and blatantly. In her words, speaking to communicate not facts or opinions, but power. And she continued, Putin's power lies in being able to say what he wants, when he wants, regardless of the facts. He is president of his country and king of reality. Just consider Putin's absurd speeches in recent weeks, declaring the illegitimacy of Ukraine as an independent country, justifying his catastrophic bloody invasion in order to denazify Ukraine. Ukraine, a Western-leaning democracy with a Jewish president. None of it has any bearing on reality, but that is exactly the point. I'm sure that in developing his teaching, Schneerson drew on his own formative experiences in Tsarist and Bolshevik Russia, and his leadership of a community that included thousands of Jews trapped for decades behind the Iron Curtain. It simply cannot be a coincidence that his depiction of Amalek sounds so much like Vladimir Putin, former officer of the KGB. In Jewish thought, Amalek is often described as a force of randomness and chaos, an affront to the very idea of a providential God who orders the world. Today, the world, particularly Ukraine, confronts a modern-day Haman who weaponizes that Amalekite sense of chaos and truthlessness with devastating consequences. Over the past several years, we've also seen these very same forces wreak havoc upon our own democracy and our social fabric. In the words of political scientist Rebecca Gordon, when we routinely assume that our fellow citizens and government officials are lying, it becomes impossible to work together to determine how our neighborhoods, our cities, or our country should function. When we abandon the effort to figure out what is true, we cede the field to anti-democratic leaders. Schneerson concludes that only passionate faith in, passionate fidelity to, passionate celebration of the value of truth for its own sake can transcend the nihilism of Amalek. In other words, to be on the side of the Israelites in fighting the forces of Amalek is to insist, in the words of a Jewish Ukrainian-American veteran, Alexander Vindman, that here, right matters. Shabbat Shalom, a happy, joyous Purim to you and your loved ones.